The deep black of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds scattered across black cloth. In this quiet corner of the galaxy, something was about to change everything. Fleet Commander Vex Thulon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon. His forearms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. His purple skin gleamed under the soft blue lights of the ship's systems. Behind him, 46 other ships of the Zephyrian Dominion's Third Fleet moved in perfect formation. "Commander," called his navigation officer, "we are approaching the target system." Vex Thulon turned his large head toward the main display screen. The star system ahead looked ordinary. A yellow star burned at its center, with several planets circling around it. "Nothing seems special about this place." "What do our scouts tell us about these creatures?" Vex Thulon asked his intelligence officer. The younger Zephyrian pulled up files on his screen. "The beings call themselves humans, Commander. They have only recently learned to travel between stars. Their ships are crude metal constructs powered by chemical reactions. They have no energy shields. Their weapons are primitive projectile devices." Vex Thulon made a sound that might have been laughter. "And they dare to claim this system as their own?" "Yes, Commander. They have placed warning beacons at the edge of their space. The messages demand that all visitors request permission before entering." "Permission?" Vex Thulon's eyes glowed brighter. "These insects think they can make demands of the Dominion?" The bridge crew joined their commander in what passed for laughter among their species. The idea seemed absurd. The Zephyrian Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of most species they encountered. Their ships could destroy planets if needed. "Shall we send the standard surrender demand, Commander?" asked the communications officer. "Not yet," Vex Thulon replied. "Let us see what resistance they can offer first. It will be amusing." Far ahead of the alien fleet, Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair of the USS Defiance. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity. His crew moved with the calm efficiency that came from years of training and experience. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and steady blue eyes. He had spent 30 years in the Earth Navy, rising through the ranks during humanity's expansion into space. He had seen combat before, but never against aliens. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant from her position at the tactical station. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts. Count as 47 ships bearing 270 Mark V. Jake leaned forward in his chair. "Size and configuration?" "Largest vessel appears to be about 800 meters long. The others range from 300 to 600 meters. Hull composition unknown. They're maintaining formation and heading directly for Earth space." Jake nodded slowly. The Defiance was alone out here, conducting a routine patrol along the outer edge of human territory. The nearest Earth fleet was 3 days away at maximum speed. "Communications," Jake said to Dan Phillips at the comm station. "Any response to our automated warning messages?" "Negative, sir. They're not acknowledging our transmissions at all." "What about their own communications?" Dan adjusted his headset and listened carefully. "I'm picking up transmissions between their ships, Admiral. The language is unknown, but the computer is working on translation." Jake stood up from his chair and walked to the main view screen. Space looked empty ahead of them, but he knew 47 alien ships were out there, getting closer every minute. "How long until they reach the inner system?" he asked. Lisa checked her calculations. "At current speed, approximately 6 hours, sir." Jake thought about the colonies on the planets behind him. Mars had 2 million people. The asteroid mining stations had another 500,000. Earth itself held 8 billion souls. All of them were counting on the Navy to protect them, even if they didn't know it yet. "Sir," Dan called out, "I'm getting a partial translation of their communications. It's not complete, but I'm seeing words like conquest, slaves, and inferior species." The bridge fell silent for a moment. Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had hoped these visitors might be peaceful explorers or traders. It seemed that hope was misplaced. "Battle stations," Jake ordered quietly. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors as crew members ran to their posts. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Rick Turner brought the reactor to full power. In the weapons bay, Lieutenant Steve Cooper began running diagnostics on all systems. The USS Defiance was not a large ship by human standards. At 400 meters long, she was smaller than many civilian cargo vessels. But she had been built for one purpose: to fight and win battles in space. "All stations report ready, Admiral," Lisa announced. Jake nodded. "Maintain course and speed. Let them come to us." On the alien flagship, Vex Thulon watched his sensors track the single human vessel. It seemed to be holding position, waiting for them to arrive. "How foolish," he muttered. "They think one ship can stand against an entire fleet." His tactical officer brought up a detailed scan of the human vessel. "Commander, their ship appears to be constructed of simple metal alloys. I detect no energy shielding. Their power output is minimal." "Weapons? Unclear, Commander. The scans show several structures that might be weapon mounts, but they appear to be inactive." Vex Thulon studied the image on his screen. The human ship looked blocky and ugly compared to the smooth, organic curves of Zephyrian vessels. It reminded him of the crude tools primitive species used before they learned to work with energy and living materials. "Perhaps they plan to surrender without a fight," suggested his second-in-command. "Perhaps," Vex Thulon agreed. "But even if they do, we must make an example of them. Other species must learn what happens to those who defy the Dominion." The alien fleet continued its approach. Ship after ship moved through space like a school of deadly fish, their hulls gleaming with strange colors that shifted in the starlight. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could tear apart mountains. Behind them, they left a trail of conquered worlds and broken civilizations. The Zephyrians took what they wanted and destroyed what they didn't need. It was their way, and it had served them well for 1,000 years. But ahead of them waited something they had never encountered before. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the enemy approach, and prepared to show them exactly what humans were capable of when their families were threatened. The first contact between humanity and the galaxy was about to begin. Neither side knew it yet, but this meeting would change everything. The alien fleet moved closer to the human ship. Fleet Commander Vex Thulon felt pleased with how easy this would be. His 47 ships carried enough firepower to destroy entire cities. One primitive human vessel would not last long against such force. "Open a communication channel to the human ship," Vex Thulon ordered. His communications officer worked at the controls. "Channel open, Commander." Vex Thulon stood tall on his bridge. His voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered many worlds. "Primitive humans, this is Fleet Commander Vex Thulon of the Zephyrian Dominion. Your pathetic species has dared to claim ownership of this star system. This is unacceptable." The alien commander paused, letting his words sink in. Around him, his bridge crew watched with amusement. They had given this speech to dozens of species. Before, "You will surrender immediately," Vex Thulon continued. "Your world will become part of the Dominion. Your people will serve us as workers and slaves. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have one of your time units called Hours to respond with your surrender." The transmission ended. Vexithulon settled back into his command chair, confident that the humans would see reason. Most species did when faced with overwhelming force. On the USS Defiance, Admiral Jake Morrison listened to the alien message with a calm expression. His bridge crew exchanged glances, but no one spoke out of turn. They were professionals, trained to follow orders even in the face of impossible odds. "Well," Jake said quietly, "I suppose that answers our questions about their intentions." Dan Phillips at the communication station looked up from his console. "Admiral, should I send a response?" "Not yet," Jake replied. "Lisa, what's our tactical situation?" Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant checked her displays. "The alien fleet is maintaining formation at a distance of 200,000 kilometers. Their approach speed suggests they'll be in optimal firing. Range in approximately 40 minutes. Jake nodded. He walked over to the science station where Kelly Barnes was studying the alien ships with every sensor the Defiance had. "What can you tell me about their technology, Kelly?" Jake asked. Kelly looked up from her screens. Her brown hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her green eyes showed intense concentration. "It's definitely advanced, Admiral. Their hulls appear to be some kind of biometallic composite. Energy readings suggest they use fusion power plants, but more efficient than ours." "Weapons?" "I'm detecting what look like particle beam emitters and some kind of plasma cannon arrays. Each ship appears to have energy shielding as well." Jake absorbed this information. The aliens clearly had better technology than humanity in many areas, but technology wasn't everything in a fight. "Rick," Jake called to Chief Engineer Rick Turner over the comm system. "How are we looking down there?" Rick's voice came back steady and confident. "All systems green, Admiral. Reactor at full power, all weapon systems online. We're ready for whatever comes." Jake smiled slightly. Rick had been with him for 15 years. The man could keep a ship running with spare parts and determination. In the weapons control room, Lieutenant Steve Cooper ran final checks on the Defiance's armament. Unlike the flashy energy weapons of the aliens, human weapons were based on more basic principles. Rails guns fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Missile systems carried various types of warheads. Point defense systems used rapid-fire projectile weapons to shoot down incoming threats. Steve had trained on these systems for years. He knew every bolt and circuit in the weapons arrays. More importantly, he understood how to use them effectively in combat. The bridge remained quiet as the alien fleet continued its approach. Navigator Amy Watson plotted possible escape routes, though everyone knew the Defiance wasn't going anywhere. Behind them lay Earth and the colonies. Running wasn't an option. On the alien flagship, Vexithulon grew impatient as the time limit approached. "Have the humans responded to our demands?" "No, Commander," replied the communications officer. "They maintain complete silence." "Fools," Vexithulon muttered. "They think silence will save them. Very well. Prepare a demonstration of our power." His tactical officer highlighted a large asteroid floating nearby. "Shall we use the asteroid field, Commander?" "Perfect. Target the largest asteroid, full power particle beam. Show these humans what happens to those who defy the Dominion." The flagship's main weapon charged with visible energy. The beam that emerged was brilliant white, hot enough to melt steel in seconds. It struck the asteroid dead center, and the massive rock simply vanished in a cloud of glowing gas and debris. The alien bridge crew cheered. Other ships in the fleet fired their own weapons at smaller asteroids, turning the space around them into a light show of destruction. "Send another message to the humans," Vex Thulan ordered. "Tell them they have just witnessed a fraction of our power. They have 10 more time units to surrender." On the Defiance, the crew watched the alien weapon demonstration with professional interest. Jake studied the tactical display showing the vaporized asteroids. "Impressive," he said calmly. "Lisa, analysis? High-energy particle beams, Admiral. Looks like they can maintain those power levels for sustained periods. The energy requirements must be enormous." Jake nodded. "Kelly, did you get good readings? On their weapons?" "Yes, sir," Kelly replied. "I've identified the frequency patterns and energy signatures. Definitely particle-based weapons with some kind of focusing system." "Good work. Steve, are you seeing this?" Steve's voice came over the comm from weapons control. "Yes, sir. Particle beams, effective against most targets, but they have limitations." Jake almost smiled. His weapons officer understood the tactical situation perfectly. The second alien message arrived moments later. This time, Vex Thulan's tone was more threatening. "Humans, you have witnessed our power. Your primitive weapons cannot stand against the might of the Dominion. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate our capabilities on your ship instead of lifeless rocks." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew waited for orders, their faces calm and determined. These men and women had volunteered to stand between Earth and any threat that might come from space. Today, that threat had arrived. "Dan," Jake said finally, "open a channel to the alien fleet." "Channel open, Admiral." Jake stood up from his captain's chair. His voice was steady and clear when he spoke. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy vessel USS Defiance. You have entered human-controlled space without authorization and have made threats against human colonies and Earth itself." He paused, letting his words carry across space to the alien fleet. "I am authorized to speak for the United Earth government. Your demands for surrender are rejected. You have one opportunity to withdraw from this system immediately. If you do not comply, you will be fired upon and destroyed." The transmission ended. On the alien flagship, silence fell across the bridge. No species had ever spoken to the Dominion with such calm defiance. Vex Thulan's eyes blazed with anger. "They dare threaten us. One ship against 47. His tactical officer looked confused. "Commander, surely they cannot be serious. Their single vessel cannot possibly pose a threat to our entire fleet." "No," Vex Thulan agreed, "but their arrogance will make their destruction even more satisfying. All ships, prepare for attack formation. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Zephyrian Dominion." The alien fleet began to spread out, forming an attack pattern that would let them bring all their weapons to bear on the human ship. 47 advanced warships prepared to destroy one seemingly primitive vessel. Admiral Jake Morrison watched them come and smiled grimly. The aliens were about to learn something important about humanity. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy was the one who didn't look dangerous at all. The alien fleet spread out across space like a deadly net. Each ship took its assigned position in the attack formation. Vex Thulan watched the deployment with satisfaction. Soon the arrogant humans would learn their place in the galaxy. "All ships report ready, Commander. announced his tactical officer. Vexthulon studied the human vessel on his main screen. It looked so small and helpless compared to his magnificent fleet. The crude metal hull showed no signs of the elegant biotechnology that marked truly advanced civilizations. "Begin the attack," Vexthulon ordered. "Target their engines first. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Some of them should survive to tell their species about Dominion power." Particle beams lanced out from a dozen alien ships. The brilliant energy weapons crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds. They struck the human ship's rear section, where the engine should be located. But something was wrong. The beams hit what looked like solid metal hull and simply scattered. Instead of burning through the armor, the energy dispersed across the surface like water hitting a stone. "What happened?" Vexthulon demanded. His weapons officer checked his instruments frantically. "Commander, our beams appear to have been deflected." "But the humans show no energy shielding. How is this possible?" On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien weapons fire with calm interest. The first rule of human military doctrine was to never reveal your true capabilities until absolutely necessary. Ablative armor held. "Admiral," reported Lisa Grant, "minor surface scoring on sections 7 through 12. No penetration." Jake nodded. The Defiance's hull wasn't just metal, despite what the aliens thought. Layers of advanced composites, ceramic plates, and reactive armor systems protected the ship's vital areas. Human military engineers had learned long ago that the best defense was often the simplest one that worked. "Steve," Jake called to weapons control. "Are you locked on target?" "Yes, sir," came Steve Cooper's voice. "All weapon systems show green. Just give the word." Jake studied the tactical display. The alien ships had spread out to surround his vessel, but in doing so, they had also made themselves perfect targets. Sometimes, enemies defeated themselves with their own overconfidence. "Lisa, what's the status of our special packages?" Lisa smiled grimly. "All deployment systems ready, Admiral. The aliens won't know what hit them." In the alien fleet, confusion spread from ship to ship. Their most powerful weapons had failed to damage a primitive human vessel. Science officers across the fleet began scanning the human ship with every instrument they had. "Commander," called Vexthulon's science advisor, "I'm detecting unusual readings from the human vessel. Their hull composition appears more complex than our initial scans indicated." "What do you mean, more complex?" "The humans appear to be using layered defensive systems, multiple types of armor, and possibly some kind of energy absorption technology." Vexthulon felt the first stirring of doubt. No primitive species should have such advanced defensive systems. Perhaps the humans were not as backward as the scouting reports suggested. "All ships, maximum power," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on one section of their hull. We will burn through whatever protection they have." 20 alien ships turned their weapons toward the USS Defiance. Energy beams powerful enough to melt mountains focused on a single point on the human ship's hull. The space around the Defiance lit up like a small star as incredible amounts of energy poured into the concentrated attack. Admiral Jake Morrison felt the ship shake under the assault. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Rick Turner watched his status boards as emergency systems activated automatically. "Hull breach in Section 9, Rick reported over the comm. "Emergency bulkheads are sealing. Damage control teams responding." Jake frowned. The aliens were learning faster than he had hoped. If they kept concentrating their fire, they might actually punch through the Defiance's defenses. "That's enough. Playing defense," Jake said quietly. "Steve, you are authorized to return fire. Show them what human weapons can do. With pleasure, sir, Steve replied. Hidden panels along the Defiance's hull suddenly slid open. Weapons systems that had been completely invisible to alien scanners emerged from their concealed positions. The human ship's true nature began to reveal itself. The first shots came from the railgun batteries. These weapons used magnetic fields to accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. The rounds that emerged from the Defiance's guns were traveling at nearly 10% of the speed of light. 3 alien ships simply exploded. The railgun rounds punched through their hulls like bullets through paper. The kinetic energy involved was so massive that the alien shields might as well have not existed. On the alien flagship, alarms began screaming. Vex Thulan stared at his tactical display in shock as 3 of his ships vanished from the screen. In the space of 2 seconds. "Report!" he shouted. "Commander, the human ship fired some kind of projectile weapons. Solid rounds moving at relativistic speeds. Our shields had no effect." Vex Thulan felt his stomach sink. Kinetic weapons at those velocities were almost impossible to defend against. The humans had weaponized basic physics in a way that made energy shields useless. "How did we miss weapons of that power?" he demanded. "Sir, the weapons were completely hidden. Our scans showed only what appeared to be hull plating. The humans concealed their entire weapons array. The USS Defiance was transforming before the aliens' eyes. More hidden panels opened to reveal missile launchers, point defense systems, and additional railgun turrets. The blocky, primitive-looking ship suddenly bristled with weapons that no alien scanner had detected. "Impossible," whispered Vex Thulan's science advisor. "How can they hide so many weapons systems? Our sensors should have detected them." Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the alien fleet's confusion with grim satisfaction. Human military. Engineers had spent decades perfecting stealth technology and hidden weapon systems. The motto of the Earth Navy was simple: speak softly and carry a big stick. "Sir," called Amy Watson from navigation, "the alien fleet is attempting to regroup. Some ships are trying to withdraw to a safer distance." "Not today, they're not," Jake replied. "Steve, launch missiles. Full spread. Target their largest ships first." Missile tubes along the Defiance's hull opened like flowers blooming in fast motion. Dozens of smart missiles streaked toward the alien fleet. Each one carried advanced guidance systems and warheads designed specifically for space combat. The missiles spread out as they flew, each one picking its own target from the alien fleet. Some carried nuclear warheads, others held kinetic penetrators, designed to punch through ship hulls. A few carried experimental weapons that human scientists had been eager to test in real combat. Vex Thulan watched the cloud of missiles approaching his fleet with growing horror. His ships opened fire with their point defense systems, but the human missiles were fast and maneuverable. They dodged and weaved through the defensive fire like living things. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Vex Thulan ordered. "Deploy countermeasures." But the alien ships were not designed for this kind of combat. They had always relied on their superior technology and energy shields to protect them. Against enemies who used particle beams and plasma weapons, those defenses worked well. Against human weapons that ignored energy shields completely, the aliens found themselves helpless. The first missiles reached their targets. Nuclear warheads detonated against alien hulls in brilliant flashes of light. Kinetic penetrators punched through ship armor and exploded inside, tearing the vessels apart from within. In the space of 30 seconds, 10 more alien ships were destroyed or crippled. The mighty Zephyrian Third Fleet was learning a harsh lesson about human military technology. "Commander?" called his communications officer. "Several ships are requesting permission to withdraw." Vex Thulon stared at the tactical display showing his fleet's casualties. In less than 5 minutes of combat, he had lost nearly a third of his ships to a single human vessel. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. But it was happening. "Negative," he replied through gritted teeth. "No retreat. All ships. Continue the attack. Focus fire on that human ship. It cannot stand against our entire fleet." But even as he gave the order, Vex Thulon began to wonder if he was wrong. The humans had already proven they were not the primitive species his scouts had reported. What other surprises might they have waiting? Admiral Jake Morrison smiled as he watched more alien ships fall to human weapons. The Defiance hadn't even revealed all of her capabilities yet. The real show was just beginning. The alien fleet was in chaos. Ships scattered in all directions as their commanders tried to avoid the deadly human weapons. Vex Thulon watched his tactical display with growing desperation as more red icons appeared, marking destroyed vessels. "Science Division," he barked. "I need answers. How are the humans doing this?" His chief science advisor, Keth Mirren, worked frantically at her station. Her 6 arms moved across multiple displays as she analyzed every piece of data about the human ship. "Commander, these beings think differently than any species we have encountered," she reported. "Their weapons use principles we consider primitive, but they have perfected them to an extraordinary degree." "What do you mean?" "Look at their projectile weapons. Instead of using energy to destroy targets, they use pure kinetic force. A solid object moving at those speeds carries more destructive power than our particle beams, and there is no defense against it except to avoid being hit." Vex Thulon felt cold fear creeping into his thoughts. "Their missiles?" "Even more disturbing. Commander, each missile appears to have its own thinking system. They learn from our defensive fire and adapt their approach. Some carry explosive warheads, others use kinetic impact. We cannot predict what each one will do." On the USS Defiance, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet's confusion with professional satisfaction. Human military doctrine had always emphasized adaptability and unpredictability. Never let the enemy know what you're going to do next. "Admiral," called Lisa Grant, "I'm tracking 28 remaining alien vessels. 15 appear to be combat effective. The others are either destroyed or heavily damaged." Jake nodded. The Defiance had cut the alien force in half, but they were far from finished. The surviving ships were regrouping and learning from their mistakes. "Kelly," he said to the science officer, "what can you tell me about their tactics?" Kelly Barnes studied her sensor readings. "They're adapting, sir. The aliens are changing their formation to minimize our targeting opportunities. Some ships are using damaged vessels as shields." "Smart," Jake admitted. "They're learning that our weapons require direct line of sight. Steve, what's our ammunition status?" "Railgun capacitors at 80%, Admiral. Missile inventory down to 60%. We're using ammunition faster than I'd like." Jake considered this. The Defiance carried a lot of firepower, but it wasn't infinite. If this battle dragged on too long, they might find themselves in trouble. "Time to try something different," he decided. "Lisa, activate the electronic warfare suite. Let's see how their communications hold up to some interference." "Yes, sir," Lisa replied with a grin. Hidden transmitters throughout the Defiance suddenly came online. Powerful jamming signals flooded the space around both fleets. But the human systems were designed to work through their own jamming, while the alien ships found their communications disrupted. In the alien fleet, chaos grew worse as ships lost contact with each other. Commanders who had been coordinating their attacks suddenly found themselves fighting alone. "Commander," called Vexthulon's communications officer. "We're being jammed across all frequencies. I can barely maintain contact with our own ships." "How is this possible?" Vexthulon demanded. "The humans are using our own communications against us?" Keth Mirren looked up from her analysis. "No, Commander. They are flooding all frequencies with noise, but somehow their own systems continue to function. They must have prepared for this type of warfare." Admiral Jake Morrison stood behind Dan Phillips at the communications station. "Dan, patch me through to the alien flagship. I want to talk to their commander." "Break through their jamming, sir? Use the backup frequency. Let's see if they're listening." Dan worked at his controls and nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Jake's voice cut through the electronic chaos surrounding both fleets. "Alien Commander, this is Admiral Morrison. You have seen what one human ship can do against your entire fleet. You have lost over half your forces. I am offering you one final chance to withdraw." On the alien flagship, Vexthulon heard the human message with disbelief. Even while winning, the humans were offering mercy? "This is Commander Vexthulon," he replied. "You think you have won, human? You face the might of the Zephyrian Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds. Your single ship cannot stand against us forever." "You're right," Jake agreed calmly. "One ship probably couldn't stand against your entire empire. But you're not fighting our empire, Commander. You're fighting one patrol vessel on the edge of human space, and you're losing." The transmission cut off, leaving Vexthulon staring at his communications panel. The human's words echoed in his mind. One patrol vessel. If this was just a single patrol ship, what would a real human fleet be like? "Commander," his tactical officer interrupted, "the remaining ships are requesting new orders. Do we continue the attack?" Vexthulon looked at his tactical display. 28 ships had become 15. His mighty Third Fleet had been cut apart by a single human vessel, but retreat was unthinkable. The Dominion did not retreat. "All ships, prepare for final assault," he ordered. "Full power to all weapons. We end this now." The surviving alien ships moved into a tight formation. They would concentrate all their remaining firepower on the human ship and overwhelm its defenses through sheer volume of fire. "Sir," called Amy Watson from navigation, "alien ships are massing for another attack. They're grouping together." Jake studied the tactical display. The aliens were making their final play, putting all their remaining ships into one concentrated attack. It was tactically sound, but it also gave him an opportunity. "Steve," he called, "prepare the special package. It's time to show them our newest toy." In weapons control, Steve Cooper's hands moved over controls that few people in the Earth Navy even knew existed. Deep in the Defiance's hull, a weapon system came online that represented humanity's most advanced military technology. "Singularity torpedo armed and ready, Admiral," Steve reported. The alien fleet charged toward the Defiance with everything they had. 15 ships poured their combined firepower at the human vessel. Energy beams hot enough to melt asteroids struck the ship's hull. Alarms wailed throughout the Defiance as systems overloaded. In engineering, Rick Turner fought to keep the ship together as hull plates buckled under the massive energy assault. "Hull breach in sections 12 through 15, he reported. "We're losing atmosphere in the port cargo bay. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but barely." Jake felt his ship shake and groan under the alien attack. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The lights flickered as power systems strained to their limits. "Now, Steve," Jake ordered. "Fire the Singularity torpedo. A single missile launched from the Defiance's forward tube. To alien sensors, it looked like just another human projectile, but this missile carried something that no alien species had ever seen in warfare. The torpedo flew straight toward the center of the alien formation. When it reached the optimal position, it detonated. But instead of an explosion, it created something else entirely. A tiny black hole formed in the space between the alien ships. For just a few seconds, a miniature singularity existed where the torpedo had been. The gravitational forces it generated were irresistible. 5 alien ships were caught in the singularity's pull. Their hulls stretched and twisted as they were, drawn inexorably toward the black hole. Metal screamed as it was compressed beyond its limits. In moments, the 5 vessels simply vanished into the artificial event horizon. The singularity collapsed on itself and disappeared, leaving only empty space where 5 alien warships had been seconds before. On the alien flagship, absolute silence fell across the bridge. Vexthulon stared at his tactical display, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. "What was that?" he whispered. Cathamiran's voice shook as she replied. "Commander, I believe the humans just created a temporary gravitational anomaly. They weaponized space-time itself. 10 alien ships remained. Half the crews were in shock from what they had seen. The other half were calculating how quickly they could escape. Admiral Jake Morrison looked at his tactical display with satisfaction. The Singularity torpedo had worked exactly as designed. Human theoretical physicists had spent years developing the technology, and human engineers had turned it into a practical weapon. That got their attention, he said quietly. "Dan, open a channel to the alien fleet. All ships." "Channel open, Admiral." Jake's voice carried clearly to every surviving alien vessel. "Attention, alien fleet. You have now seen a small demonstration of human military capability. You came here expecting to find a primitive species that would surrender without a fight. Instead, you found something else entirely." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You can continue this battle if you choose. But understand that you are not fighting children with sticks and stones. You are fighting humanity. We have spent our entire history learning how to make war. We have turned science itself into a weapon, and this is just one ship." The space around both fleets fell silent, except for the crackle of damaged systems and emergency transmissions. "You have 1 minute to decide," Jake concluded. "Withdraw now, or face the consequences of underestimating the human race." The minutes stretched like an hour. 10 alien ships hung in space, their crews wrestling with a decision that could determine the fate of their entire species. Vexthulon sat in his command chair, staring at the human vessel that had destroyed nearly 40 of his ships. "Commander," his communications officer said quietly, 3 ships are requesting permission to withdraw. Their commanders say they cannot continue this battle." Vexthulon said nothing. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had never seen their commander so quiet before. Science advisor Cathamiran approached his chair carefully. "Commander, I must speak with you about what we have learned." "What is it?" Vexthulon asked without looking away from the main screen. "These humans are not like any species we have encountered. Every assumption we made about them was wrong." "Explain." Cathamiran pulled up data on her portable display. "Their technology follows different principles than ours. We focused on energy manipulation and biological integration. They focused on physics and engineering. Their weapons use the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The gravity weapon? Just one example, Commander. Their railguns use electromagnetic forces to achieve velocities we thought impossible. Their missiles have artificial intelligence that adapts in real time. Their ship's armor uses materials science we do not understand. Vex Thulon finally turned to look at his science advisor. What are you saying? I am saying that we may have encountered a species that evolved along a completely different technological path. They weaponized science itself, and this is apparently just a patrol ship. On the USS Defiance, Admiral Jake Morrison waited patiently for the alien response. His bridge crew remained at battle stations, ready to continue the fight if necessary. Admiral, called Lisa Grant. I'm detecting movement in the alien formation. 3 ships are breaking away from the main group. Jake watched the tactical display as 3 alien vessels turned away from the battle and began accelerating toward the edge of the star system. Their commanders had made their choice. 7 ships remaining, Jake noted. What about their flagship? Still. Holding position, sir. No movement detected. Jake studied the alien command ship on his screen. The vessel was larger than the others, with more sophisticated weapon systems. Its commander was obviously struggling with the decision. Dan, Jake said, open a direct channel to the alien flagship. I want to speak to their commander personally. Channel open, Admiral. Commander Vex Thulon, Jake began. I know you can hear me. Your ships are leaving. You can follow them and live to report what happened here. Or you can continue this battle and join your destroyed vessels. The response came after a long pause. Admiral Morrison, I am Fleet Commander Vexa Thulon of the 3rd Fleet. I have conquered 17 worlds for the Dominion. I have never retreated from battle. There's a first time for everything, Commander. Your choice. Another pause. Then Vex Thulon's voice returned, sounding older and more tired. Tell me, Admiral, how many ships does humanity have like yours? Jake considered the question carefully. The truth was that the Defiance was one of the newer ships in the Earth. Navy, but hardly the most powerful. The real warships were much larger and carried weapons that made the Defiance look like a patrol boat. Enough, Jake replied simply. On the alien flagship, Vex Thulon closed his eyes. The human's answer told him everything he needed to know. If this was what one patrol vessel could do, what would a real human fleet be capable of? Sir, his tactical officer whispered, your orders? Vex Thulon opened his eyes and looked around his bridge. These crew members had served with him for years. They trusted him to make the right decision. He had led them through dozens of successful campaigns. He would not lead them to pointless death. All ships, he announced over the fleet communication system. This is Commander Vex Thulon. We are withdrawing from this system immediately. Set course for Dominion space maximum speed. Across his bridge, relief was visible on every face. The remaining 7 ships began turning away from the human vessel, but Jake Morrison wasn't finished. Commander Vex Thulon, before you leave, I want to make something clear to you and your government. What is that, Admiral? Humanity claims this star system and the surrounding region of space. We will defend it against any aggression, but we are not interested in conquest or expansion into your territory. Stay away from human space, and we will stay away from yours. Vex Thulon felt, surprised by the human's words. Every species the Dominion had encountered either surrendered immediately or fought to expand their territory. The humans seemed content to defend what they had. You do not wish to conquer other worlds? He asked. We have enough worlds to keep. Us busy for centuries, Commander. We explore and colonize empty systems. We trade with peaceful species. We defend ourselves against aggressors. That's enough for us. The alien commander processed this information. A species with advanced military technology that didn't want to conquer others? It was almost unthinkable. Admiral Morrison, Vexthulon, said finally, "What message should I carry back to the Dominion about humanity?" Jake thought for a moment. "Tell them that humans are peaceful by preference, but we will defend ourselves with whatever force is necessary. Tell them that underestimating us is a mistake that costs lives, and tell them that we're willing to discuss peaceful relations if they're interested. And if they are not interested in peace, then tell them to send a bigger fleet next time. They'll need it." The alien ships completed their turn and began accelerating away from the human vessel. Vexthulon watched the USS Defiance on his rear sensors until it disappeared from view. "Kethmiran," he called to his science advisor, "begin a complete analysis of everything we learned about human technology. I want a full report ready when we return to Dominion space." "Yes, Commander. What should I emphasize in the report? That we encountered a species unlike any we have faced before. They think like predators, but they offer mercy to defeated enemies. They have advanced technology, but they don't use it for conquest. They defend their territory with devastating effectiveness, but they don't seem interested in expanding it." Kethmiran made notes on her display. "The Dominion Council will find this difficult to believe. Show them the battle recordings. Show them what happened to our ships. Let them decide if they want to test human military capabilities with a larger fleet." On the USS Defiance, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien ships disappear into the distance. His crew began standing down from battle stations and assessing damage to their ship. "Damage report," Jake requested. Chief Engineer Rick Turner's voice came over the comm system. "We took some hits, Admiral, but nothing critical. Hull breaches in sections 12 through 15 are sealed. We'll need some time in space dock for proper repairs, but we can make it home under our own power." "Casualties?" "Minor injuries only, sir. Nothing serious." Jake nodded with relief. Bringing his crew home safely was always his first priority. "Admiral," called Lisa Grant, "what should I put in the battle report?" Jake considered the question. How do you summarize humanity's first contact with a hostile alien species? How do you explain that a single patrol ship had defeated an entire alien fleet? Make it simple, Lisa. First contact with alien species resulted in hostile action. Aliens were defeated and withdrew. No human casualties. End of report. That's it, sir? That's it. The detailed analysis can wait until we get back to base. Jake looked out at the stars surrounding his ship. Somewhere out there, the alien survivors were carrying news of humanity back to their government. Soon, the galaxy would know that humans had arrived on the interstellar stage. The question was, what would they do with that knowledge? "Amy," he called to the navigator, "set course for Earth, best speed." "Yes, sir. Course laid in. Take us home." The USS Defiance turned toward Earth and began its journey home. Behind it, debris from alien ships drifted in space, silent testimony to the day humanity announced its presence to the galaxy. In his private quarters later, Admiral Jake Morrison wrote a personal note to be included with his official report. It was addressed to the Earth Defense Council and marked with the highest security classification. "Today we learned that we are not alone in the universe," he wrote. "We also learned that not all alien species are friendly, but we proved that humanity can defend itself against any threat. The question now is, what kind of neighbor do we want to be to the galaxy?" He sealed the message and sent it toward Earth, along with all the data about their encounter with the Zephyrian Dominion. Soon, people much smarter than him would decide humanity's future among the stars. Jake hoped they would choose wisely. 3 weeks later, the surviving ships of the Zephyrian Third Fleet limped into Dominion space. What had once been a proud armada of 47 vessels was now reduced to 7 damaged ships carrying survivors and terrible news. Fleet Commander Vex Thulon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his home system grow larger on the main screen. The blue and purple world of Zephyr Prime hung in space ahead of them, surrounded by the massive orbital stations that served as the heart of Dominion power. "Commander," called his communications officer. "Orbital Command is requesting an immediate report on our mission status." Vex Thulon hesitated. "How do you explain that an entire fleet was destroyed by a single enemy ship? How do you tell the Dominion Council that they had encountered a species unlike anything in their experience? Tell them we are returning with critical intelligence about a new threat," he replied. "Request immediate audience with the High Council." "Yes, Commander." As the damaged ships approached the orbital stations, Vex Thulon could see other Dominion fleets in the distance. Hundreds of ships floated in perfect formations, ready to carry out the will of the Empire. He wondered how many of those ships would survive if they encountered humanity. Science Advisor Kethmiran approached his command chair carrying a datapad. "Commander, I have completed the analysis you requested. What are your conclusions?" The humans represent a completely different approach to technological development. Where we focused on biological integration and energy manipulation, they perfected materials science and weapons technology. Their entire military doctrine appears designed around the concept of overwhelming force applied with precision. Vex Thulon took the data pad and scrolled through the technical analysis. The numbers were disturbing. Human weapons could penetrate Dominion shields. Human armor could withstand Dominion particle beams. Human tactical systems could adapt to Dominion strategies faster than his ships could respond. "What about their industrial capacity?" he asked. "Unknown, but their single ship carried enough ammunition to destroy our entire fleet twice over. This suggests massive manufacturing capabilities and resource allocation specifically for military purposes." An hour later, Vex Thulon found himself standing before the High Council of the Zephyrian Dominion. The 7 members of the council sat in their elevated chairs, looking down at him with expressions of disbelief and anger. High Counselor Thexmalon spoke first. "Explain to us, Fleet Commander, how you lost 40 ships to a single primitive vessel." Vex Thulon kept his voice steady despite the humiliation he felt. "Respected counselors, our intelligence about the humans was completely wrong. They are not a primitive species. They are a highly advanced military power that has weaponized fundamental physics. Show us," demanded Counselor Yethvirian. The chamber's holographic display activated, showing recordings from the battle. The council watched in silence as human weapons tore through Dominion ships. They saw the railgun rounds moving at impossible speeds. They watched the Singularity torpedo create and destroy a black hole in the space of seconds. When the recordings ended, the chamber remained silent for long minutes. "This is impossible," whispered Counselor Mexthoran. "No species develops such weapons without conquering their neighbors first. Where are the human slave worlds? Where are their conquered territories?" "That is perhaps the most disturbing aspect." "Counselor," Vex Thulon replied, "they do not appear interested in conquest. They claimed only their own star system and warned us not to return." High Counselor Thexmalon leaned forward in his chair. "A species with this military capability, and they do not expand their territory? They do not seek to dominate others? The human admiral offered to discuss peaceful relations if we were interested. He also warned that if we were not interested in peace, we should send a larger fleet next time. The council members exchanged glances. The implications were staggering. A species that could destroy Dominion fleets but showed restraint? It went against everything they understood about galactic politics. "What is your recommendation, Fleet Commander?" asked Counselor Zethkylon. Vex Thulan had spent weeks thinking about this question. "I recommend we avoid human space entirely. Their technology gives them significant advantages over our current military doctrine. If we must interact with them, it should be through diplomatic channels only." "You recommend we negotiate with these humans as equals?" The concept seemed to offend High Counselor Thexmalon. "I recommend we treat them as the dangerous predators they are, Counselor. They offered mercy once. They may not offer it again." Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the briefing room of Earth Defense Command. Around the A table sat the most senior military and political leaders of the human government. The atmosphere was tense as they absorbed the implications of first contact. "So we're not alone," said Defense Secretary Patricia Hayes. "And our new neighbors tried to conquer us on first meeting." "That appears to be the case, Madam Secretary," Jake replied. "The alien commanders seemed genuinely surprised that we resisted. I get the impression they're used to easy victories." General Marcus Webb, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, studied the tactical analysis on his data pad. 47 ships destroyed or disabled by one cruiser. That's going to send a message across whatever communication networks they have. The question is, what kind of message? Asked President William Carter. Jake considered his words carefully. "Sir, I believe we demonstrated that humanity will defend itself effectively, but I also tried to make it clear that we're not interested in aggressive expansion. We want to be left alone, but we're willing to discuss peaceful relations." "And if they don't want peaceful relations?" asked Secretary Hayes. "Then they'll test us again with a larger fleet, and we'll have to be ready for that possibility." Dr. Elizabeth Stone, the government's chief science advisor, looked up from her analysis of the alien technology. "Admiral, your report mentions that their weapons use particle beam technology. How advanced would you say their overall technology level is?" "More advanced than ours in some areas, less in others. They have better energy weapons and some kind of biotechnology integration. But their material science and kinetic weapons are far behind ours. They also seem to lack our tactical flexibility." "Interesting," Dr. Stone mused. "It sounds like our two species developed along completely different technological paths." President Carter stood up from his chair and walked to the large window, overlooking Earth's blue oceans. "Recommendations, people. What do we do now?" General Webb spoke first. "We need to accelerate our military shipbuilding program. If one patrol cruiser can handle their fleet, imagine what a full battle group could do." "But we should also prepare for the possibility that they have much larger forces." "Agreed," said Secretary Hayes. "But we also need to consider diplomatic options. Admiral Morrison's approach of offering both strength and mercy seems to have worked. We should develop formal protocols for contact with alien species." Dr. Stone raised her hand. "I recommend we establish a dedicated xenology department. We need to understand how other species think and organize themselves. Knowledge will be our best defense." President Carter turned back to the group. "Admiral Morrison, you've had the only direct contact with these aliens. What's your gut feeling about them?" Jake thought about Fleet Commander Vex Thulan and the conversation they'd had during the battle. Sir, I think they're a military empire, used to conquering weaker species. But they're not mindlessly aggressive. Their commander showed tactical intelligence and ultimately chose to withdraw rather than sacrifice his remaining ships. That suggests they can be reasoned with. But they'll be back? Maybe. Depends on how their government responds to the news. If they're smart, they'll leave us alone and focus on easier targets. If they're proud or desperate, they might try again with overwhelming force. President Carter nodded slowly. Very well. General Webb, begin expanding our fleet construction. Secretary Hayes, develop diplomatic protocols for alien contact. Dr. Stone, establish your xenology department. And Admiral Morrison? Yes, sir? Get back out there. I want our best people patrolling our borders. If these aliens come back, or if other species show up, I want them to meet professionals who know how to handle first contact situations. Understood, sir. As the meeting broke up, Admiral Jake Morrison found himself thinking about the larger implications of what had happened. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, they knew they weren't. The question was, what kind of galaxy would they find out there? How many other species existed? How many were peaceful? How many were hostile? One thing was certain. Humanity's days of isolation were over. They were part of a larger galactic community now. Whether they wanted to be or not, the challenge would be figuring out how to survive and thrive in a universe full of unknowns. Jake hoped humanity's natural adaptability would serve them well in the years to come, because something told him that the Zephyrian Dominion was just the beginning. There were other species out there, other challenges waiting to be faced. Humanity had announced their presence to the galaxy with overwhelming force. Now they would have to live with the consequences of that announcement. The adventure was just beginning. News traveled fast across the galaxy, especially bad news. Within weeks of the Zephyrian fleet's return, every major power in the known galaxy had heard whispers about the new species that had destroyed an entire Dominion fleet with a single ship. On the crystal world of Veltar, the Crystalline Collective held an emergency gathering. Thousands of crystal beings resonated in harmony as they shared information through their unique form of communication. Elder Six Thera's thoughts echoed through the crystal caverns where her people met. The Zephyrians were defeated completely. 40 ships lost to one enemy vessel. This changes the balance of power in our region of space. The response came as a chorus of harmonized thoughts from the gathered collective. Are these humans a threat to peaceful species? Should we make contact? What are their intentions? Unknown, Sixth Era replied. But reports suggest they offered mercy to the survivors and claimed only their own territory. They may be different from the Dominion. In the underwater cities of Aquatica Prime, the Cetacean Federation received the news with different concerns. Admiral Whale Song Deep Current floated in the central command chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts. The humans use kinetic weapons, his tactical advisor reported through sonar speech. Solid projectiles moving at extreme velocities. Our biohulls would offer little protection against such weapons, but they did not pursue the retreating Zephyrians, Deep Current noted. This suggests they fight only when threatened. Perhaps they can be approached peacefully. The mechanical world of Gear 7 processed the information differently. The Machine Collective analyzed every detail of the battle with computational precision. Unit Prime 7743 reviewed the data for the 1,000th time. Conclusion: human technology follows mechanical engineering principles rather than biointegration or energy manipulation. Probability of successful defense against human weapons, 23.7. Recommendation: avoid contact until defensive capabilities improved. But not every species reacted with caution. In the war-torn Nexus sector, the hive queen of the insectoid swarms saw opportunity rather than threat. "So," she hissed to her warrior caste leaders, "the mighty Dominion has been humbled by a new species as if the humans are as powerful as reported, they could be valuable allies against our enemies. Or dangerous rivals for territory, my queen," replied her chief general. "Then we must learn more about them. Send scout ships to the edge of human east space. Observe but do not engage. We need to understand these sea beings, before we decide if they are friends or foes." The news also reached the trading posts and neutral zones where different species met to exchange goods and information. In the bustling marketplace of Station Gamma 9, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the implications. A Zephyrian trader named Colmatic found himself surrounded by curious beings from other species. His purple skin had turned pale with stress as he answered the same questions over and over. "It is true," he told the crowd. "I have seen the battle recordings. One human ship destroyed nearly 40 Dominion vessels. Their weapons are unlike anything we have encountered. A floating gas bag creature from the ethereal drift pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. What do they want, these humans? Territory, resources, slaves?" "That is the strange part," Colmatic replied. "They seem to want nothing except to be left alone. They claimed only their own system and offered to discuss peaceful trade." A multi-armed insectoid from the border colonies clicked its mandibles nervously. "Species that powerful always want more. It is the nature of successful predators." "Perhaps," said a wise old telepathic sage whose species had long since given up physical bodies. "But perhaps these humans evolved differently. Some predators are territorial rather than expansionist. They defend their hunting grounds fiercely but do not seek to claim new ones." The debate continued for hours, but no one could agree on what humanity's emergence meant for the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the deepest regions of space, ancient powers stirred. The Void Watchers had observed galactic civilizations for millions of years, rarely interfering in the affairs of younger species. But the destruction of a major fleet by an unknown power had caught their attention. In their vast ships that drifted between dimensions, the Watchers discussed the implications of humanity's arrival. "They use crude kinetic weapons," observed one Watcher. "Yet they achieve remarkable effectiveness through precision and overwhelming force. Their tactical thinking shows creativity and adaptability," noted another. "They do not follow standard galactic military doctrine." "Most interesting," added a third. "They show restraint despite superior firepower. This is unusual among emerging species." The lead Watcher, ancient beyond measure, synthesized the observations. "These humans may represent a new evolutionary path for galactic civilization. We shall observe them with great interest." Back in Zephyrian space, High Counselor Thexmalon found himself dealing with consequences he had never anticipated. Emergency sessions of the Dominion Council had been called as news of the defeat spread to their subject worlds. "Counselor," reported his intelligence chief, "we have confirmed uprisings on 3 colony worlds. Local populations believe the Dominion has been weakened and are testing our resolve." "What forces do we have available to respond?" "Limited, sir. The loss of the Third Fleet has created significant gaps in our defensive coverage. Other powers are already probing our borders. Thex Milan felt the weight of command pressing down on him. The Dominion had built its power through a reputation for invincibility. That reputation lay in ruins thanks to one human ship. What news from our intelligence networks about these humans? Still limited, Counselor. They appear to be a relatively young spacefaring species, but their technology in certain areas is remarkably advanced. Their industrial capacity is unknown, but must be substantial to support such weapon systems. Any indication they plan to expand into our territory? None, sir. All reports suggest they are focused on defending their own space rather than conquering new worlds. Thex Milan considered this information carefully. Perhaps we can use this situation to our advantage. How so, Counselor? If the humans truly have no expansionist desires, they might be convinced to sell us their weapon technology. We offer trade agreements, raw materials, whatever they want in exchange for military hardware. The intelligence chief looked skeptical. Sir, species with such advanced weapons rarely share them willingly. Then we find out what they want and offer to provide it. Every species wants something, but Thex Milan's assumptions about humanity were about to be tested. Deep in human space, scientists and engineers were already working on new projects that would make the USS Defiance's weapons look primitive by comparison. Dr. Rachel Kim stood in her laboratory on Mars, watching her team test a new type of shield technology. Unlike the energy shields most aliens used, this system was based on controlled gravity fields that could deflect or absorb incoming attacks. How effective is it against particle beams? She asked her lead technician. 97% absorption rate, came the reply. The gravity field converts the incoming energy into harmless radiation and dissipates it safely. And against kinetic weapons? More challenging. But we can deflect projectiles up to a certain mass and velocity. Anything larger gets slowed down significantly. Dr. Kim smiled. The alien weapons that had seemed so threatening a few weeks ago were already becoming obsolete in the face of human innovation. In another laboratory, Dr. James Park was working on improvements to human weapon systems. The railguns that had destroyed the alien fleet were just the beginning. What if we could accelerate projectiles to 20% of light speed? He asked his team. Theoretically possible, replied his chief engineer. But the power requirements would be enormous. Then we build bigger power plants. If these aliens come back with larger fleets, we need to be ready for them. The competitive spirit that had driven human technological development for centuries was now focused on the challenge of space warfare. The result would be weapons and defenses that no alien species had ever imagined. But perhaps most importantly, humanity was learning to think beyond their own planet. The revelation that they shared the galaxy with other intelligent species had sparked a revolution in human thinking about their place in the universe. Philosophers debated the implications of alien contact. Diplomats studied the few examples of alien behavior they had observed. Military strategists planned for conflicts that might span multiple star systems, and deep in the offices of Earth's government, plans were being made that would determine humanity's future among the stars. The question was no longer whether humans belonged in the galactic community. The question was what kind of galactic community they would help create. Some wanted humanity to become the galaxy's protector, using their military advantages to bring peace to war-torn regions. Others preferred isolation, focusing on human expansion and development while avoiding alien entanglements. But events were already in motion that would make such choices impossible. The galaxy had noticed humanity, and the galaxy was coming to visit whether humans wanted visitors or not. The age of human isolation was ending. The age of galactic politics was about to begin. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the New Earth Defense Station. Through the massive windows, he could see construction ships working on humanity's first real battle fleet. Dozens of ships larger and more powerful than the USS Defiance were taking shape in the orbital shipyards. "Impressive sight, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. Jake turned to see Dr. Catherine Ross, Earth's first Director of Alien Affairs. She was a tall woman with gray hair and intelligent eyes who had spent the last 6 months becoming humanity's expert on galactic politics. "It is," Jake agreed, "though I'm not sure if I should be proud or worried about how quickly we're building up our military." "Both, probably," Catherine replied with a slight smile. "We've learned a lot about our galactic neighbors in the past. Few months. Some of it is encouraging, most of it isn't." Jake gestured toward the construction outside. "What's the latest intelligence?" 3 more species have made contact with us indirectly through neutral trading stations. 2 seem genuinely interested in peaceful relations. The 3rd appears to be testing our defenses by sending scout ships to the edge of our territory. Which species is testing us? The insectoid swarms. They're currently at war with the Crystalline Collective over mining rights in the Sigma sector. They're probably wondering if we might make useful allies or dangerous enemies. Jake nodded. The political situation in their region of the galaxy was more complex than anyone had imagined. Dozens of species competed for resources and territory, forming shifting alliances and fighting small wars that could explode into major conflicts. What about the Zephyrians? Any word from them? Officially, nothing. Unofficially, our intelligence sources say their government is split. Half want to try negotiating with us, the other half want revenge for their lost fleet. And while they argue among themselves, their empire is starting to fracture. Subject worlds are declaring independence. Border territories are being claimed by rival powers. The Dominion is discovering that military reputation is hard to rebuild once it's broken. Jake felt a mixture of satisfaction and concern. He hadn't wanted to start a galactic war, but the consequences of that first battle kept spreading outward like ripples in a pond. "Dr. Ross," he said, "do you think we made the right choice? Fighting instead of surrendering?" Catherine was quiet for a moment, watching the ships being built outside. "Admiral, in the past 6 months, I've studied the history of every alien species we know about. Do you know what I've learned? Tell me." Species that surrender to aggressors like the Dominion don't just lose their freedom. They lose everything that makes them who they are. Their culture, their technology, their future. The Zephyrians have enslaved 17 different species. None of them exist as independent peoples anymore. So we had no choice. We had a choice. We could have become slaves, or we could have fought. You chose to fight. And because you won, humanity still has a future among the stars. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's communication system. "Admiral Morrison, please report to the command center. Priority message incoming." Jake and Catherine made their way to the command center, where technicians were tracking multiple contacts at the edge of human space. The duty officer, Commander Lisa Grant, looked up as they entered. "Admiral, we have a situation developing. Long-range sensors are detecting a large fleet approaching from the direction of Crystalline Collective space." Jake studied the tactical display. "How large?" 12 ships, sir. Configuration unknown, but they're broadcasting on standard diplomatic frequencies." Catherine stepped forward. "What are they saying?" "They're requesting permission to enter human space for peaceful negotiations." The lead ship identifies itself as a delegation from the Galactic Trade Consortium. Jake and Catherine exchanged glances. The Trade Consortium was something new, a loose alliance of species that focused on commerce rather than conquest. They had been trying to establish contact with humanity for months. "What's your recommendation, Dr. Ross?" Jake asked. "This could be exactly what we need. The consortium includes several peaceful species that might become our first real allies. But we should be careful. Some of their members have their own agendas." Jake made his decision. "Grant signal the alien fleet. Tell them they have permission to approach Earth. But they must stop at the outer defense perimeter and allow inspection of their ships." "Yes, sir." 3 days later, representatives from 6 different alien species sat around a conference table in Earth's orbital diplomatic station. It was humanity's first formal diplomatic meeting with multiple alien governments. The crystalline collective was represented by Elder 6 Thera, whose crystal body refracted light in beautiful patterns as she spoke. The Cetacean Federation had sent Admiral Deep Current, who floated in a specially designed water tank. The trading empire known as the Free Merchants was represented by Captain Vexola, who looked somewhat like a humanoid cat. Other species were represented as well, creating a conference room that looked like something from humanity's wildest science fiction dreams. Dr. Catherine Ross led the human delegation, with Admiral Morrison providing military perspective and President Carter participating via secure communication link. "The purpose of this meeting," Catherine began, "is to establish formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the members of the Trade Consortium. We understand that our recent actions have created uncertainty in this region of space." Elder 6 Thara's crystalline voice chimed like musical instruments. "The defeat of the Zephyrian fleet has indeed changed the political balance. Many species see opportunity where before there was only Dominion oppression." Admiral Deep Current's sonar speech was translated by his artificial interpreter. "The Federation has long sought to limit Zephyrian expansion into our territory. Your demonstration of military capability has given us hope that aggressive expansion can be resisted." Captain Vexola spoke in a purring voice. "The Free Merchants are interested primarily in trade opportunities. Your species clearly has advanced technology that many worlds would pay well to acquire." President Carter's voice came over the communication link. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, humanity is interested in peaceful relations with all species willing to respect our sovereignty. We're willing to discuss trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and cultural exchanges." "But," Admiral Morrison added, "we want to be clear about our position. Humanity will defend itself against any aggression. We've proven we can do so effectively. We'd prefer to be friends with our neighbors, but we're prepared to be enemies if necessary." The alien representatives exchanged glances, or the equivalent for their various species. The human position was clear. Cooperation was welcomed, but threats would be met with overwhelming force. Elder 6 Thara spoke first. "The Crystalline Collective proposes a mutual defense agreement. If either of our species is attacked by external forces, the other will provide military assistance." Admiral Deep Current agreed. "The Federation seconds this proposal. Together, our combined fleets could maintain peace in this region of space." Over the following hours, the outlines of a new galactic alliance began to take shape. The Trade Consortium would expand to include humanity, creating a bloc of species committed to peaceful cooperation and mutual defense. But even as treaties were being negotiated, everyone knew that challenges lay ahead. The insectoid swarms were still testing human defenses. The Zephyrian Dominion was rebuilding its fleet. Other powers in distant regions of the galaxy were watching the situation with interest. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Ross found herself talking privately with Elder Six Thera. The crystalline being's body pulsed with gentle colors as she spoke. "Dr. Ross, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Your species defeated the Dominion fleet so easily, yet you seek alliance with species whose military power is much less than yours. Why?" Catherine considered the question carefully. "Because strength isn't just about military power, Elder. Each of your species has knowledge, skills, and perspectives that humanity lacks. The crystalline collective understands energy manipulation in ways we're still learning. The Cetacean Federation has mastered biotechnology. The free merchants know trade routes and economic systems across half the galaxy. So you seek to learn from us?" "We seek to build something better than what existed before. The old galaxy was dominated by empires that conquered and enslaved weaker species. Maybe together we can create a new model, cooperation instead of conquest, trade instead of tribute." Elder Six Thera's colors shifted to what Catherine had learned indicated approval, a noble goal. But what if other species prefer the old ways? Then they'll discover that the new ways come with very good defenses. Later that night, Admiral Morrison stood again on the observation deck, watching the alien ships preparing to, depart. Each vessel was unique, reflecting the different evolutionary paths and technological approaches of their builders. Dr. Ross joined him at the window. "So what do you think, Admiral? Are we ready for whatever comes next?" Jake watched a crystalline ship that looked like a living gemstone and a cetacean vessel that resembled a giant sea creature floating through space. "Dr. Ross, 6 months ago, I thought humanity's biggest challenge was building better starships. Now,